If you had to face legendary shape-shifting monsters that skinned its victims alive, what would you do? You'll be forced to face off against a hybrid-mutant-demigod and will be forced to watch it kill everyone you love. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Claymore. This chick is going to regret not slaughtering her own kind. Teresa here is the most lethal hunter on the planet. Coming from a class of half-human, half-monster warriors, she lives to fight terrifying creatures known as the YOMA, flesh-eating demons that feed on humans. She just finishes killing a YOMA in the village and tells the townsfolk that her handler will come by later to collect payment for the job. The villagers try to underpay her, but she says that if they do, her kind will not come to help them anymore. And without them, their village will soon be overrun with bloodthirsty YOMA, and the only ones that can kill YOMA are her kind. Other villages have tried not to pay them, and they all paid a terrible price. This woman is known as a Claymore. She leaves town to meet up with her handler, Orse, who gives her her next assignment. Reaching a new village, the villagers think this freak is here to save them, but she begins slaughtering them one by one. It's a bloodbath and everyone screams in terror. This guy tries to run for help, but Teresa splits his face in half. Everybody thinks that this Claymore has gone crazy, but that's when all of the dead bodies on the ground start turning into YOMA corpses. Teresa calls all of them a bunch of idiots and says it serves this village right because they had no idea that this village was being used as a nest for countless YOMA. These creatures absorb the mind and memories and thinking patterns of their victims, which is why humans can't detect them. She counts the bodies, but senses that there's one more. Looking at this man holding a little girl, she rushes past him, splitting him in half, and his blood spews on this little girl. Later, Teresa prepares to leave the town but gets stopped by the little girl from earlier. She finds out that this girl was being used as the YOMA's hostage. She has been put through horrible things and is now too scared to speak. She tells the little girl that she only killed the YOMA because it was her job and nothing more. The girl tries to hug Teresa but gets knocked down hard, and Teresa quickly leaves town, heading into the forest. She discovers that the little girl has followed her all the way here. Getting mad, she threatens her, but just then they hear footsteps approaching and Teresa's military training takes over. She cuts this man's hand clean off, and they've discovered they've run into bandits, and the bandits recognize that she's a Claymore and prepare to retreat, but their leader reveals some bad news for Teresa. He states that it is against their warrior code to kill humans, and if they do, they will be hunted down and brutally murdered as a punishment by their own kind. According to their own rules, Teresa can't touch them no matter what they do to her. The little girl's heart starts racing in fear, and the bandits' hearts start to race in excitement. Well, we're in some shit. So here's what we gotta do in order to survive. I'm gonna let them eat my shit. Let me explain. Claymores are highly skilled warriors, trained by a mysterious organization that probably is very evil, at least from the looks of things. And they're kind of like Captain America in terms of powers. And they can further increase their powers even more by activating their YOMA, which is actually an inner demon power that they all have. But what doesn't make sense is that why Teresa didn't have any backup plans for this exact situation. Because if I was Teresa, I would have questioned this from the beginning. The rule of not killing humans was set in place by a mysterious organization that I work for. Why would we have that rule? Sure, we live to serve humans, but we can't even touch them, even in self-defense. I don't like this, because if I think about it a little more, it's easier to figure out from the beginning that the organization doesn't exactly care about me and views me as expendable. Knowing that we are expendable, I think we should install some sort of security measure in place in order to prevent this exact situation from ever happening. Now, looking as sexy as I do, it's only natural to think that our bod was going to get some serious attention. And since we can't harm any humans, we need to think that this bodaciousness of mine is actually literal shit. I'll explain. In the wild, certain plants possess the ability to emit foul smells similar to rotting flesh as a survival mechanism in order to deter less bees from pollinating them, as well as some other reasons that I don't bother talking about. I'm going to copy this move and find certain stinky plants, and I'm going to ground them up and I'm going to spread it all over my body. This way, even if the bad guys wanted a taste, they'd have to be down pretty bad to want to have a taste of this nasty, because it's gonna smell really bad. The bandits start chuckling and decide to get a taste of Teresa, and then she smiles and then rips off her clothes, revealing her horribly scarred chest. She tells them to come get it, and her willingness repulses the men, and they decide to leave her instead, carrying away the man that she injured, and he yells that she will pay for this. Teresa then tries to leave the little girl, but she ends up following her until the next morning. When she finally starts to get tired, Teresa, now relieved, jumps down this cliff, but is shocked to see this girl follow her down this high cliff, and she comes crashing down and passes out. Now Teresa is already more than happy to leave the little girl, but she realizes that if this little girl dies, then she might be blamed for her death. Annoyed, she decides to try and wake her up in this river, giving her food and water. She tells the little girl that she will escort her to the next town to make sure she survives. And once they get there, they will part ways. They continue on with their journey, and throughout the day, they bond over some really cute stuff. It is cute. By the end of it, Teresa names the little girl Claire. Closing in on the next town, they take a break to rest, but that's when they run into the man from earlier. His cut-off hand has now become infected, but he tells her that she must pay for what she did to him. Knowing that she can't touch him, Teresa lets the man do what he wants. But suddenly, the man gets knocked over with a piece of wood. Pissed off, the man rushes over to beat the shit out of Claire. At the speed of sound, Teresa rushes to the man, putting a knife directly against his throat, telling him that she will break the rules and decapitate his head right here if he touches Claire one more time. The man is horrified and runs away, and Teresa goes to check on Claire. And that's when the girl finally begins to start talking and asks if Teresa is okay, making Teresa realize that despite their differences, they both share the same suffering, and she drops down to hug her. The next day, they finally reach the next town. Teresa quickly kills the one Yoma terrorizing the villagers, and then she asks them if they can look after Claire. The two wave their goodbyes, and Teresa leaves. A little while later, while she is walking in the forest, she hears the sounds of horses passing her nearby. Sensing something is wrong, she goes to check it out and sees the same bandits from earlier, headed directly for the village that she left Claire in. She rushes back to go rescue Claire, realizing that the bandits were waiting this whole time in the forest, waiting for someone to kill the Yoma in the village. Finally getting there, she sees the town up in flames, men being slaughtered and the women and children being taken. Bodies lying on the streets, and the bandits welcome Teresa and tell her that she is their hero, right as Claire is heard screaming in the background, helpless against the bandits. Okay, Teresa was dumb as hell. If I was her, I would never have left Claire alone just like that. Instead, I would have hid in the woods close to the village and sat there throughout the night and paid attention to anybody who either came or went from the village. That way, I would have been able to keep an eye on Claire and also get ready for the likely possibility of the bandits coming by here looking for me for revenge. And if they do show up, which they probably will, I'll be able to lead them away from the village and Claire by taking them on a wild goose chase through the woods, coincidentally taking them through my setup, which I'll call the Sexy Lumberjack Kill Zone, or actually I mean Accident Zone. The town is surrounded by a dense forest, and knowing this, what we could have essentially done was what wildlife biologists do with trees that they want to cut down in a safe way, which is a process known as felling a tree. The chainsaw or axe, for example, cuts a tree in the direction that it's leaning in. We're superhuman, so we could use our sword instead of a chainsaw to cut and insert a notch wedge into the front side of the tree, about a quarter distance of the width of the tree. Cutting the tree in this specific way would have allowed us to essentially weaken the tree in advance. From here, in order to make the tree fall over, because of our notch wedge, all we would have had to do would have been to cut the tree just a little bit deeper into the wedge, causing our tree to fall. Just like taking out that last piece in a Jenga puzzle, it causes everything to crash. And we're basically doing the same thing. And if the bandits happen to be in the way, well, accidents happen all the time. As a Claymore, our superhuman speed would have allowed us to pull ahead of the bandits chasing us, and then circle back to get ready to do some lumberjack chopping. And the rule states that Claymores are forbidden from inflicting physical harm to humans, but that doesn't mean trees falling because of gravity can't, wink wink. And it also doesn't mean that we can't intimidate them into giving up and running away terrified. Because if I'm the bandits, and I just had some of my crew die from freaking trees falling on them, and then I find a Teresa missing my neck by just a few inches with a giant sword, I would be more than happy to give up on the idea of revenge. And then from here, we have the choice to either leave Claire there or take her with us. My vote is leave her, because she is only going to be a liability, and I don't want to have to save her every freaking time. This bandit tells her that he'll watch over Claire for her, and she loses her mind and quickly kills him in one swift move. Everyone here is shocked, but the bandit leader laughs, telling her that she knew she would crack eventually. Stepping off his horse, he whips out his sword he calls his Falcon Sword, and tells Teresa that no one has ever been able to defeat him. He charges at Teresa, but she easily slices through him like butter. Eyeing the rest of the bandits with piercing cold eyes, she slaughters every last one of them, and Claire then wakes up just as Teresa's handler arrives, and they both witness what she's done. A few days later, Teresa is called upon to meet with other Claymores. They declare that since she broke the rules of their kind and murdered humans, she must now pay the ultimate price: death. Swords drawn. Teresa prepares to die right here, while Claire cries out to her in horror, but Teresa suddenly acts with speed and disables all the Claymores around her, blood dripping on her sword, shocking everyone. She tells them that she can't afford to die yet, and Claire goes to hug her. She announces to them that she's found a reason to live. The handler tells her that she'll regret her decision. Later, he goes back to talk to the big boss of the Claymore organization, but he tells the handler that what Teresa just did is no big deal. He orders the handler to organize Claymore numbers 2 through 4 to hunt down Teresa. These warriors are second ranked only to Teresa and are now hungry to take her spot as number 1, and they begin to initiate the beginning of the end for Teresa and also the world. Later, other Claymores are dispatched to meet up at this YOMA nest. Ranks 3 and 4 link up, easily slaughtering hordes of YOMA like it's nothing, and they get stopped by their leader, the number 2 warrior in the world. She reveals to them that they've been tasked with a dangerous mission to go take down the number 1 warrior in the world, Teresa. She also mentions that they will be waiting on another member to join them soon. The Claymore named Elena tells her soldiers that this new person is actually the new number 2 warrior, having just completed her training in 2 months. She's that good. Elena tells these two that her ranking has dropped to number 3, while theirs has dropped to 4 and 5. These two get shocked and pissed off, but Elena says that they can try fighting the new number 2 for the title, if they want to risk their lives. And that's when they hear the new number 2 clumsily running out from this alleyway, and she collapses on the floor, introducing herself as Priscilla, and she starts crying, telling everyone she's sorry for being late and begs for their forgiveness. Oh my gosh. And number 3 and 4 notice that this is a little weird. Not just because she's weird, but because they notice the trail of death following behind her. Thousands of YOMA corpses. Elena warns them that Priscilla is the only Claymore who is powerful enough to kill without using her YOMA power to help her, just like Teresa. And soon she will surpass Teresa and become the number 1 hunter in the world. Meanwhile, Teresa and Claire continue to go on the run. Reaching this town, she runs into a YOMA, not wanting to raise attention to them. She considers letting it roam free, but Claire convinces her to help the people, and she easily slaughters it. This hotel owner thanks them and offers them to stay in his hotel for free. Seeing Claire exhausted, she accepts the man's offer and they rest up, but that's when she senses 3 YOMA power sources entering the town and realizes that she just made a huge mistake. The other Claymores have found her. She quickly suppresses her YOMA aura to darn near undetectable levels, so she isn't discovered. Okay, this makes no sense in how they handled things, which is why I'm going to act like the German Christmas devil known as Krampus, and use the town's innocent civilians to help me escape. Let me explain. At this point, Teresa's stupidity has now shown in the greatest light possible, because how she handled trying to run away was dumb as hell. If I was her, I would not have listened to Claire at all about saving any YOMA in this village. Screw that idea. I would not have taken her feelings into account, and stopping at this hotel was risky, however nice I'm sure the hotel is. Because think about it, as a Claymore, we can go on for days without food and water, and the only reason we would have had to rest was because of Claire, which is why, upon first entering this town, I would have got a hold of a ride, don't you think? One, a horse and carriage combo, one with plenty of cargo room, because we're going to need plenty of space for the corpses. Traveling on foot in general was not really smart, because you're on foot. You're not exactly traveling at light speed to get out of there. Plus, why waste all of that energy? But with a horse and carriage and plenty of space for the bodies, I mean people, I would have then enacted my Krampus plan. Krampus, my good weeps, is an old folktale story about a German devil that snuck into the houses of all the naughty children during Christmas. And unlike Santa, Krampus lured little children with candy and then captured them and stuffed them in his bag. And then later, though, he ate their flesh. Which is why, using my horse carriage, I would then begin kidnapping a whole lot of people, women and children, and order all of the men to go fight the Claymores and buy me some time, if they want to have even a chance of seeing their families again. What? I gotta do what I gotta do, because we need to put as much distance between us and the hunting party that is after us. And the more distance we can put between us and them, the harder it will be for them to sense us. Because Claymores, the closer they get to YOMA energy, the better they can figure out where exactly it is. Sounds simple, hard I know, but it's our only shot. We have to get out of here quickly. Elena quickly finds Teresa thanks to the public and declares that she's here to take her life. She takes out her sword and the two go at it. Claire wakes up in horror just as another Claymore attacks from the window. Quickly evading, Teresa escapes with of Claire outside, but suddenly notices another soldier standing behind her. She realizes that she was unable to detect her standing there and thinks that this girl might just be her biggest threat. Priscilla introduces herself and politely says that they will be taking her life because of the shame that she has brought upon their organization. She attacks Teresa with a faster speed than any Claymore before her, and the others watch. Elena tells these two that Teresa is the best because she can fight without using her YOMA powers at all, just like her. But then Priscilla suddenly gets injured, and these two get shocked. But Elena smiles and reveals that it's now their time to strike. Everybody is confused. Elena tells them that while Priscilla has the talent to kill Teresa one day, she still needs more training. Meanwhile, Teresa prepares to kill Priscilla, but notices Claire in the background. Seeing her cuteness, she decides, like a dum-dum, to spare Priscilla's life, and the other Claymores quickly surround her and try to trap her, supercharging with their YOMA powers. But Teresa easily uses her YOMA detection skills to see all of their moves and quickly defeats them, not using her powers at all. Leader Elena is horrified that they underestimated her. Teresa then tells them that they can keep on coming after her, and she will keep on beating their asses. And then she and Claire leave the village. Elena quickly goes to check on her teammates, but notices Priscilla acting weird. She begins crying and starts to show signs that she's crazy, like truly insane. And she tells Elena that what Teresa did to the organization was unforgivable and she must be stopped. Elena tells her to chill out a little bit, but then suddenly she releases her YOMA powers and charges off to stop Teresa. And she catches up to Teresa, but now she looks different, unleashing her YOMA powers to its near max. Teresa tells her that she's not experienced enough to release this much power, and if she keeps this up, soon she will turn into a full-blown YOMA and won't be able to turn back. Catching up to her, she attacks with full-on anger and no clarity, and she manages to cut Teresa. And this pisses Teresa off, and for the first time uses 10% of her YOMA powers, eventually overpowering Priscilla, and she tells the young girl that she's already using 70% of her powers, and warns her of the horrifying stakes that she is about to face. If she uses 80% of her powers, she will turn into the very thing that they were trained to hunt, and she'll lose her humanity in the process. Still angry, Priscilla doesn't listen and goes full-blown YOMA, sealing her fate, and she becomes a full-on monster. With a little humanity left, she realizes what she's done and begs everyone to help her, but Teresa tells her it's too late, realizing she's done for. Priscilla accepts her fate to die, and she readies her sword. But it's too late. The group stare in confusion. Teresa's hands lay next to Claire, and somehow Priscilla has cut off Teresa's head, and then she unleashes her full-on YOMA powers and turns into something much worse, an awakened being. Ugh, I'm so sad. I'm really bummed out, like why didn't Teresa die sooner? Why is she still alive? Let me explain. Teresa at this point is a veteran Claymore, the best of the best, apparently, and therefore she knew exactly what all the Claymores went through, including their recruitment process and training process, and this part is important. Claymores are simply humans made with YOMAs. Half monster, half human, kind of like Blade, and unlike how it was in World War II, no one ever signs up to become a Claymore. They're forced into it. And this suspicious organization routinely kidnaps children from families that were killed by YOMA, or ones that don't have anybody that cares about the kids. And from there, they split their body open and insert YOMA flesh into the human body. Then they train the children to be their foot soldiers from a young age. Seeing how devoted Priscilla was to the organization shows why around 40% of the world's armed organizations have children in their ranks. Yeah, this is a real thing. They force children into service at a young age. Why kids are easier to manipulate. Considering the world of Claymore, all these soldiers are walking time bombs when it comes to their mental health, and Priscilla was no different. Being young made her especially more susceptible to acting out of blind faith and devotion rather than logic. Compared to the older women in the group, especially Elena, this made her a much more obvious threat to begin with. And even if she was super powerful, it doesn't matter. She was batshit crazy, and everybody knew it, but did nothing about it. Teresa knew all of this, and yet still chose to spare her life the first time. She went soft on her, all because of one tiny, adorable, cute little problem. Claire made Teresa soft, weak, and distracted, and this is what killed her. Rising from the transformation, Priscilla likes her new powers and announces that she is now craving flesh and wants to bury her head so she can chomp their intestines. Walking towards the others, she swiftly kills the lame Claymores and slits Elena's neck. and she watches her greatest failure walk straight towards Claire. Frozen in fear, the girl can't move. But Priscilla ends up walking right past her and flies away. Going to collect Teresa's warm, decapitated head, she runs back to the town nearby and confronts Teresa's handler. Wanting vengeance, she begs this man to use Teresa's flesh to turn her into the one thing that will be able to stop Priscilla. And now her journey as a Claymore begins. Years later, Claire, now a Claymore, goes through the ranks, training for the day she'll meet her arch nemesis. Heading to this village for her next assignment, she senses countless YOMA that are hiding within this town. Scouting the area, she runs across this kid, and he tells her that the YOMA killed most of his family, and he wants her to stop them. But Claire tells him to piss off. Later, the kid goes back to his house, but discovers his uncle dead on the floor, and then he spots a YOMA staring at him dead in the face. Angry, he charges at the beast but gets caught and is about to be devoured when Claire crashes through the roof, smelling the YOMA scent on the kid's clothing earlier. She takes out her sword and quickly slices its body parts off one by one. Leaving town, she realizes that the kid from earlier has been following her. He tells her that since she saved his life, he must now repay her somehow. He reminds Claire of herself, and she decides to keep him on as her assistant, just like Teresa did with her. A few days later, she gets word by her bosses to meet up with other Claymores in town as the situation has changed. More and more YOMA, a stronger kind, have begun to take over the land. They're not like the old school YOMA. These creatures are known as voracious eaters. Claire stops to meet her handler first and demands that she be put on the team to hunt down monsters like Priscilla because she thinks she's ready. But the handler shoots down her request and reveals something even more terrifying. He tells her that awakened beings and voracious eaters are the same thing. The public thinks voracious eaters are YOMA that have gotten too old, but they're actually Claymores just like Claire, but they've lost control of their powers, just like Priscilla has. The public can never know of the organization's failure to not be able to control their own soldiers, which is why Claire must take this secret to her grave. Okay, so we've just grown up into a bodacious hottie. Fantastic news, but in order to deal with Priscilla, we're gonna need more than that. I'm gonna take a page right out of NASA's handbook in order to defeat her. Let me explain. Priscilla has just turned into an awakened being, which are YOMA hybrids that have gone past their YOMA limit of 80%. They're much more dangerous, they're strong, they're batshit crazy, and have lost all of their humanity. At least that's how it is for most of them. And the fact that the organization has been keeping the origins of these things a secret from us is kind of tells me that we can't trust them and they're evil. Anyways, we should be more careful about what questions we ask them from now on. But right now, worrying about Priscilla should be my #1 goal because she took down my adopted muscle mommy. Not cool. And while Teresa may have acted like the most stupid person in the entire planet for how gullible she was very nice. So we gotta avenge her right now. In order to take on Priscilla, I will look into the relationships between awakened beings in general. While many of these creatures have lost their humanity, it's clear that their form and thinking patterns are based on their personality that they had when they were human, which is something that we can use. I would take a page right out of a rather controversial person. The dude's name is Werner von Braun. This dude was the top ballistic guys for the Nazis during World War II. I know, he's really bad. He had thousands of people working for him in horrific conditions and was a scumbag who belonged in hell. However, though, after the war, America recruited his evil brains and put him to work to combat the Soviets in the space race. And they had him join NASA. He was the chief architect of the Saturn V launch, the vehicle that brought the Apollo spacecraft to the moon. The lesson to be learned from this example is that the Americans recruited their former enemy to take down their enemy, the Soviets. Using that example means that I would look into different awakened beings to begin to try to figure out if any of them have any disagreements between each other, such as territorial disputes. Find an awakened being and convince them to take down Priscilla, because it's likely somebody must have hated her guts at some point and want to take her place as one of the strongest awakened beings in the land. In short, find an enemy to take down another enemy. The handler tells her that unless they get an order to take out an awakened being, they are forbidden from hunting it themselves. Claire begs him to give it a shot, and he agrees to test her, putting her on a special squad. She gets sent to meet up with her new team, and they prepare to go hunt an awakened being. Meeting her teammates, this woman introduces herself, Miria, the commanding officer of the hunter, rank 6th, 7th time hunting a voracious Voracious Eater. Deneve, rank 15, second time hunting a Voracious Eater, and Helen, rank 22, no experience hunting a Voracious Eater. They ask Claire her rank and if she has experience, and that's when she reveals her pathetic power level. Rank 47, experience 0. Everybody begins laughing just like I would, cause she's weak! And she tells the kid that there are only around 47 districts in this world, meaning Claire is the lowest ranked hunter in the world! Claire leaves the kid at the village, and the Claymore group goes off to hunt for their terrifying target. Later, they set up camp for the night, and leader Miria tests out Claire's powers. Normally, only warriors ranked 30 or lower are put on these types of dangerous missions, and she doesn't believe Claire is as weak as she looks. They quickly fight it out, and they observe her moves and notice something, but Claire quickly gets outmatched, and the other two Claymores watch and laugh. The next day, they head into the mountains, but come across this sweet man. He tells them that he was the one who called for their help, and Miria quickly tries to cut his throat, but it's too late, as the other realize that she's been badly wounded, and the man transforms into their true target, a Voracious Eater. The group is shocked, realizing that he's the first male Claymore they've ever seen. Miria tells them that there must be some sort of mistake. They were never given any intel about a male target. Okay, this is the first male Claymore that we've ever come across, which means the only way to take him out will be flirting the shit out of him. Let me explain. Male Claymores have crazy strength, way stronger than any female awakened being. However, when in their human form, for some reason, their YOMA power level is so low that it makes them undetectable to all Claymores, and that is why Miria couldn't sense that this guy was an awakened being until it was too late. Years ago, the organization used to create male Claymores, but stopped making them eventually as they all kept turning into awakened beings, unlike the women. The reason why many Claymores used their full powers and turned into awakened being is because the transformation feels sexual. Yeah, it feels really good. Because of this, it's hard for many to resist the urge into an awakened being. So in short, because a lot of men are horny, a lot of them had a hard time not getting turned on. But their horniness is something that we could use. Look, everybody here is a boss babe, which means that we could work hard, but also play hard, which means that we should try to seduce and flirt with the male awakened being by coming onto him super hard. By using our feminine charms, we could distract him, while the other three Claymores pretend to run away in fear and then went up close. We gave him a little bit of sugar, distracting him long enough for the other Claymores to sneak in and attack from above. And in doing so, we will be able to put a stop to his horniness once and for all. They try to defend themselves, but the male quickly kills Deneve, and they see her fall off a cliff. Taking her arm, it spits it back at them. Helen charges at him but misses, and the male catches her and throws her back, quickly trying to stretch out her arms. And she manages to cut the male's arms off, but they regenerate instantly. They're horrified, just as Deneve rises back from the dead, with her arm regenerating faster than they've seen any Claymore do it before. Miria thinks it's impossible that she could regenerate that quickly, and suddenly notices that these girls are using their powers more efficiently than any other Claymore has ever done before, and none of them realize that they're being watched in the distance. The Claymores quickly try to come up with another game plan. The male laughs and asks them why do they think they were sent to take him down, and reveals to them that they were sent on a suicide mission by their own kind. He instantly kills Deneve and shoots his hands through Claire, and stabs Helen while their leader watches in horror. The male tells her that he will make her feel pain and despair before he kills her. Miria quickly tries to rescue the girl, but she sees them already healing at record speeds. The monster tries to attack her, but she uses her speed to dodge every attack. Knowing that eventually she will run out of speed, he waits till she runs low on energy, and he finally manages to catch her and begins to make her squeal in pain. Meanwhile, the girls begin to slowly wake up. The male sticks his tongue inside of her ripped open stomach, and she screams in horror. The other girls try to save her, but they're too weak, and all they can do is watch. But Claire somehow manages to get up, picking up her sword and walks towards the monster, shocking everyone. The male tries to strike Claire, but keeps missing. Miria realizes that Claire has disabled her YOMA powers completely, and since the monster is using all of his YOMA powers, Claire can see all of his moves before he makes them. Claire walks right up to the monster and quickly cuts off his body parts one by one, almost killing him, but gets knocked back. Miria gets back up and tells Claire that she still needs training, and her and Claire prepare to take this ugly bastard down, killing him for good. Now all healed up, Miria suspiciously asks her girls if any of them have been on the verge of awakening before, and wouldn't you know it, they reveal they all have. Looking serious, Miria realizes that everyone here are known troublemakers to the organization, and since they've already been nearly awakened, this likely explains their powers, and could also mean that the organization sent them on this mission on purpose. Miria also reveals that she nearly awakened before as well, and tells the girls that she's actually been investigating the organization this whole time, since they treat Claymores like disposables. She's been conducting investigations in secret, so that That way they don't find out. But she hasn't learned anything, and she thinks that the organization has decided to get rid of her, and tells the girls that she thinks everyone here is actually already awakened. They just haven't realized it yet. Based on the powers that she saw them use earlier, stretching arms, healing instantly, all of those are examples, because for a normal Claymore, that's impossible. And just then Deneve wakes up, and Miria tells them that they could awaken at any time, which makes all of them dangerous. Deneve decides to test this theory out. Turning on her YOMA powers, she tries to instantly heal herself, pushing her powers to the maximum, and then she tries to turn back into a human. She tells the other girls that if she turns into a monster, then the girls should be ready to kill her. Transforming, her body starts healing rapidly, and the girls ready their swords, but she makes it back and keeps her humanity, and this bold, really dangerous move confirms Miria's theory. They are all already awakened. Claire then senses that someone is watching them, but Miria tells them that within the mountains, no one will be able to hear what they're saying, and she lays down the game plan. She tells the girls to not tell the organization what they all now know, and all the while she will continue to secretly investigate them, and also mentions that because they have now awakened, they are now as powerful as someone within the single-digit ranking, and tells them to watch out for Claymore levels 5 or below, writing down the top 5 warriors they should look out for, warning them about number 4 especially. Miria tells them that number 4 has no care for Claymores or human life, and is obsessed with hunting awakened beings. They must avoid her at all costs. Her name is Ophelia. They also must keep a low profile, because if anyone finds out their secret, they're all dead. Miria tells them that anything she finds out, she will report back to them, and tells them to not let their guard down until they meet again, and everyone agrees to join forces in secret until they eventually meet again. But what did you think about the video? What would you do different? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below, and as always, check out our How to Be playlist.